Well, good morning. It's been a little bit, and what you can see in front of you is my 2015 Jeep Wrangler. You're probably going to wonder why is it on a hunting and fishing channel along with some of my drone stuff. Well, we all have things that we like to do. And to do those things, we have to have something that gets us there, right? So I noticed when the weather got real cold that this was squealing on startup, and then it continued to get a little bit worse. And I'm pretty confident it's the belt. And instead of taking it to a shop or going to your brick and mortar stores and buying a belt, I could plan this out and went through Rock Auto and got a belt, two idlers, and a tensioner in case I need any of those for less than the cost of the belt and way less than taking it to a shop. And so the reason it'll be on my car channel, but you'll see it on this channel, is because I want you to be able to do it because it saves you money. It'll take you a little bit of time, but then you can spend the money on other stuff, for hunting, for fishing, whatever you like. So first steps today, I'm gonna pop off the engine cover, and then I'm gonna take this intake tube off, which takes like two 10mm bolts and a flathead screwdriver, and then we'll get in there and I'll kind of show you some of the quirks about changing the belt on a 3.6 liter Pentastar, mainly that the alternator's backwards. So join me, I'll rearrange the camera a little bit so you can get in there and see. I'm gonna grab a set of tools and we're gonna try and knock this thing out in short order. That way I can go do some other stuff today. So there is one tool that you'll need that isn't what you'll get out of your generic toolkit. Like I bought a gear wrench set off of Amazon for like $85. That has everything I need. You'll either need the belt tensioner tool, or the square that's in there, I'll show you in a little bit, is able to take a 1/2-inch breaker bar. And so that'll be my weapon of choice this morning, to get that tensioner to back off enough. And I think what we'll try and do is, I know I said I'd bought idlers and the tensioner, but we're going to try, here's that first 10mm bolt, we're going to try just the belt first because it should be easy and quick enough to do. And the one thing I didn't grab was I didn't grab the flathead screwdriver out of my toolbox in the garage that I'll need. So I'm going to have to run back and get that. I also didn't pop the engine cover off yet. It'll be a little more challenging than a stock JK or JL Wrangler. I do have both. One's going to be for my daughter to drive, and then one's for me to modify how I want. But I have one of those aftermarket front bumpers, and it makes it a little challenging because I can't get as close to the front end. I'm offset by about a foot or so, which I'm short, so that doesn't help. It just means that I'm going to have to lean over or stand up on the bumper or something to do whatever I need to do. There we go. There's a screwdriver. I disappeared to go to the garage. Can't actually pull it in the garage right now because I have too much stuff and two motorcycles in the way. So again, I popped the engine cover off. I've taken the two 10mm bolts off. And then the hose clamps you can use, I think it's like an 8mm if you wanted to. But a flathead screwdriver works fine because these are the slotted ones. You've got one up here that you can probably see me messing with that goes to the intake. And then you've got one right here by the airbox, which actually the camera's on the airbox, so I might mess something up a little bit. And the other thing you want to keep in mind when you pop this intake tube off, there is a mass airflow sensor plug, I believe, on the bottom underneath near the intake side. You also want to take this hose loose from the coolant overflow. And then it should be just as simple as you start wiggling it, and just like that, things come loose. Well, they're supposed to come loose. How about that? There we go, we're loose. And then the plug is down here somewhere, right there, which should just be a easy connector to push in and pull the plug off. Maybe not. There we go, just like that. And then this whole thing comes out of the way, and it gives you a little bit more room to work. And so I told you there were some quirks with every kind of vehicle. Oh, dropping bolts over here. One of the ones you'll see is this alternator is mounted backwards. So, safety tip, disconnect your negative battery cable. I'm going to ignore my own advice because I don't intend to take this all the way loose. I'm going to take the two, I think they're 15s, there's like a 16 and a 13 down there, and I'm just going to back that off enough to get this belt out of the way. And then you can see kind of down here, there's that little 1/2-inch piece for the tensioner. And so I'll take my 1/2-inch ratchet and I'll come in on the other side of this coolant line, and I'll take it and I'll pull the bar to the driver's side of the vehicle so it pushes the tensioner to the passenger side, and then I'm going to snake the belt off of that smooth pulley. And I'll get all that off, take the alternator loose, and then put the new one on. And my hope is I'll drop it down through the top. So let me get to work on that and see how it ends up. So join me as I continue to mess with this thing. So I've got my 1/2-inch breaker bar and an extension, and I'll go in and attempt to line it up, which is going to get right in the way of the camera. And then I am going to have to actually stand on the bumper of the Jeep because I can't get close enough. Stand up, lean, something. But again, this is all stuff you can do yourself. One of the things you might want to look for if you're not sure how your belt routes is take a look at how it goes. This one will come off the crank pulley up and around that flat pulley for what I believe is the water pump. It'll go around the alternator or AC compressor, come under an idler, come up to here, comes back down, goes around the tensioner that's right underneath of it, and then goes around the power steering pump. So I think that's what we're gonna do. And if not, Google is your friend. Okay, that's awfully tight. She's not wanting to move. Was not expecting that. Might be why it was squealing though. Normally these move pretty darn easy. Well, I don't think it goes the other way. The other thing is if you're pulling on this super hard, you don't want it to pop you in the face. So be careful there. Alright, so sometimes you run into a monkey wrench you weren't planning on. I didn't plan on this tensioner and the hydraulic piece being so daggone tight I couldn't do anything with it. So instead of moving that thing back and potentially busting a 1/2-inch breaker bar into my face, I just went and got the new tensioner, and it has 2 bolts, and it looks like they're 13 mils. There's your little hydraulic unit. And I'm just going to pop the thing off, and that'll get the belt loose, and then we'll continue down our path of changing the belt. Like I said, not the way I had it planned, and I'm using hand tools instead of anything fancy, because everything batteries are charging on. So we'll do that, get this belt off, and then we'll put a new one on. So just a note, if you decide to go the route of popping the old hydraulic tensioner off because it doesn't want to move, there's going to be pressure there. Bolts are going to get stuck. And since I'm there, I'm also doing the idlers. Bearing seems fine. I don't see any reason for it to be an issue, but you're right there, so you may as well. The new ones come in a pretty little bag, and they got a bolt on them. They're kind of already captured. Important thing, making sure they're the same size, same width, and you just tighten these down until they're good. They're good and tight, but I'm sure there is a torque spec. But using a regular 3/8 ratchet and putting the 13mm bolt back on, actually the new one looks like it's a 14, not a 13. I'm sorry I took my mic off because it was getting in the way and I was getting frustrated. It just wasn't going well. And so that's one of the things, you know, I used to do this every day. It's my job. And you get really good at it, and then you still think you're really good at it. And you hadn't done it in ages. And then you realize you're not as good at it as you thought you were. You're not as fast, you're not as, you know, you don't remember all the shortcuts. I don't really want to call them shortcuts, but. And with this captured bolt, you can't actually put it on there without taking the alternator all the way loose. That's what I was trying to avoid. Well, that might not be true. So it's got this little piece in here that kind of captures it, and so your bearing can spin free and all that good jazz. You can actually back that out almost to the end of the threads, and then I can put it on without having to take this alternator all the way loose, which is what I was trying to avoid. Now, I have to loosen it regardless, so that way I can actually put it back together and get the old belt off and get the new belt on. But I shouldn't have to do anything crazy. See if that'll work. That might give me enough room. So what I'm trying to do is snake it behind the alternator bracket and then start the bolt. And it looks like I can if I get my hand down there. But I'm kind of running out of room. So that's the fun part about working on vehicles. Sometimes you're going entirely by feel because you can't see what you're working on. And I don't think it worked the way I wanted it to. But we're not done yet. I can get up there and give it another try. Sometimes it's all about whatever angle you're contorted to. So you're going to get a view of me leaning over the camera. Or I'll just move the camera back here. And we'll see. You get to watch me stick my damn hands down here and try and... That's there. So now what's the deal here? I'm not sure what's going on. Why the bolt won't sneak in there the way I want it to. Unless it's the wrong daggone size. Let's unthread this completely and try sending just the bolt, and pay attention to which way you pull it apart too. See if the bolt's even the right size. And so that's kind of the challenge of ordering parts off of Rock Auto sometimes, right? That is definitely not the right size bolt. But I think we have a way around that. Because once you pull these brackets off, they look identical. And the original bolt has a little conical head on it that captures just like that. And how much you want to bet that's going to work like a charm? Let's find out. So I told you I saved all that money by not going to a brick and mortar store. Well, sometimes those are the challenges you run into. So the important thing here is, as I tighten it down and I get this conical head in where it's supposed to, I'm gonna want to make sure that once I tighten it up, it still turns. Because if not, that's not gonna be good. So we'll get the extension on here, we'll grab the ratchet, and we'll see if we can get it to tighten down, and then we'll do the exact same thing on the other side. Unless you put the socket on before you put the extension on. Don't do that. That's just kind of doing things backwards. Doesn't really help your case. So my first clue that something probably wasn't right was when the head of the bolt was a 15 and not a 13 like what came off of there. So now I got that tight. Let's make sure the idler spins. And it does. I think we're in business there. Second one's the same way too. Gonna go ahead and pull the bolt and little spacer things out. I don't understand why that was the case, but it's the way it goes sometimes. Everything about them looks the same. So I'm hoping we're going to be all right. Now I got to sneak that other one out, which that one's not going to be fun either, but we'll give it a shot. It's one of those things, since you're here, just replace it all. Well, folks, I didn't want you to see all the craziness that I had to deal with. As you can see, the intake tube's going back on. Pay attention to your belt routing, even the new tensioner. I had that 1/2-inch breaker bar to try to get it to move. I ended up having to put a jack handle on it to get it to compress enough to actually let me get the belt on. And again, sorry, putting tools up as I go. I would strongly advise that the last pulley you run the belt over is the smooth pulley for the water pump. And if you have a second set of hands, that wouldn't hurt, because if you didn't have an aftermarket bumper like I do, which has made the job incredibly difficult to this point, you wouldn't have been able to stand on it, put the jack handle over the breaker bar, and turn it, or push it, and then reach down and sneak that belt over. And another thing, just make sure that you're in the grooves on all the pulleys that have grooves that they're supposed to be in. And this one kicked my butt a little bit more than normal, but they're all pretty simple. And I think it took me about an hour, because I had some challenges with the hydraulic tensioner and then with getting everything lined back up. And then one of the idlers just didn't want to spin. So I thought I was going to put an old one back on, but what I didn't realize is a section of the old belt was caught behind it as I was pulling everything apart and putting things back together at the same time. Just do a thorough double check. Save yourself some money. Cost you a little bit of sweat equity, but that's about all.